Welcome to Acharya Shunya's Global Satsang. Acharya Shunya is a modern teacher of non-dual Advaita Vedanta philosophy from the Upanishads and Bhagavad Gita, the lived practices of Vedic yoga, and the transformative knowledge of Ayurveda lifestyle wisdom. Her teaching changes lives, enabling happiness, well-being, and spiritual abundance. For seekers of the ultimate truth, these teachings awaken consciousness and assist realization of the sovereign self. Acharya Shunya is a Vedic wisdom holder of an ancient lineage. She received traditional training under her guru, Baba Ayodhya Nath, in Ayodhya, India. Baba tasked Acharya Shunya to bring these teachings to the modern world. As a teacher who has walked this Vedic path from darkness to light, from emotional bondage to spiritual freedom, Acharya Shunya is uniquely able to dynamically communicate these ancient subtle teachings to modern students. We welcome you to begin your journey of Vedic studentship with these monthly classes. Please be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel and Vedic Contemplations Facebook group for ongoing study with Acharya Shunya.
If you are someone who has been engaged in some kind of a spiritual quest for a long time, you have been officially or unofficially on a spiritual journey, but you still feel tremendous suffering or angst, and really your wardrobe may have changed, your lingo may have changed, what you do on your weekends may have changed, but what hasn't changed is your own relationship with your own truth. Then you might be caught up in a web of spiritual hacking. You might be a victim of some misnomers that have become the truth in our era. These, I have been told by some of my students, are known under the umbrella term of spiritual hacking. And I was requested to shed some light on how we can unhack what we have bought into from our gullibility, from our innocence, and how can we actually move forward in our spiritual quest, because each one of us is a spirit in an embodied form, and we deserve to know our truth. We deserve to have a deeper, intimate relationship with a higher power, and we deserve to find some deeper meaning, purpose, and tools to deal with the ups and downs of life. Isn't that the whole promise of spirituality? And so what happened in between, and how did we get caught up in chasing a shadow of spirituality rather than spirituality itself? So I would like to take you along in the first hour of this Global Satsang classroom on a journey of understanding some most common spiritual hacks that you want to be aware of. And we will do a 15-minute Q&A right after. So 45 minutes of me sharing what I know about this and 15 minutes of Q&A. And then in the next hour, I would like to show you step by step, systematically, a process which the Vedic ancient seers, the men and women known as rishis and rishikas, had already established in place so that we're not gullible, we're not confused, we don't step in the wrong alley en route to our greatest potential and stay lost and trapped forever. So let's do that, shall we? So I can say this, that right now I'm talking to you. I welcome you from whichever part of the world you are joining me. I welcome the students around me. For many years I have been teaching these students, and some of them come and sit with me in person. And I will also be referring from time to time to my laptop, not because I'm reading my teaching, because I always teach in the now from my soul, But I have put some points there just so that I can stay concise in this 45-minute journey. So all of us put together are going to create a transformative experience. I believe that knowledge is enough. Once we are informed, we can step out of any darkness and move with greater confidence towards light. This is not to feel ashamed, not to feel stupid, not to feel, oh no, frustrated with yourself. This is to say, wow, interesting. So that's what I was caught up with. Let me now move forward with greater clarity. So you will agree that organized religion over these last several decades has worldwide taken a back seat. And pretty much the most people, at least in America, are identifying themselves as atheists or agnostics or maybe even spiritually unaffiliated. But that still doesn't take away the human quest for greater meaning, greater connection, potentially a greater joy, or a more positive overall beneficial life to ourselves, our family, our kith and kin, our community, and our planet. Isn't this the basic premise on which we wake up every day? Today will be a better day. So because religion took a backseat, spirituality has come up in the forefront. However, we are at a stage of human evolution and spirituality where there is a lot of confusion. And this is therefore very ripe as an environment for spiritual hacks to even exist. So let's just look at our times right now. In Sanskrit, the period that we humans are dwelling in from a consciousness perspective is a dark period. It is known as the period of Kali Yuga. And in Kali Yuga, it is said that the blind will lead the blind. And the blind will happily follow the blind. So teachers and followers are equally not enlightened with light. So this is very exceptional time. There is a bounty of spiritual teachings, method, techniques, teachers, and you can literally take your pick. I don't know about you, but my partner Sanjay has taken me to some amazing places where you can put together your own pizza, albeit with organic ingredients. Have you done that? You can put together your own pizza. It's in the same way you can put together your own spiritual journey. A little bit of traditional Advaita Vedanta from India by teachers like myself, maybe. A little bit of Neo-Vedanta by American teachers who sneer at the teachings from India. A little bit of shamanism, a little bit of Buddhism. How about a tiny drop of Zen? I love crystal therapy. How about polarity prana and yoga? Hindu gods and goddesses, nah, they're not enough. How about Greek and Egyptian gods and goddesses to go with it? Not to forget the New Age salad of divine love, oneness, wellness, and the hidden power of the brain to manifest and attract what you want and to disappear from your life what you don't want. I got my plate ready. Unfortunately, these remain shallow ventures. Shallow promises, shallow fulfillment, a kind of a very hedonistic, ego-driven, spiritual consumerism, which drives spiritual sales. So we have in this world today a multi-billion industry of the spiritual awakening. But alas, the human lot hasn't changed much, has it? Because it remains an industry of quick gains, quick losses, and ultimately quick fixes. Is somebody doing this to us? No. There are no bad guys. We're not the victim here. we humans have a tendency to get a little lost in our trips. History will show it to you. And right now we are on a spiritual trip because we all want to know the secret. We want that one key that's going to unlock all the happiness and abundance in the world and make disappear all the sorrow. It's almost like we want to create an artificial El Dorado. And that is why probably some of my students requested me to shed light on that, because they themselves have been sincere but not making progress. We're talking about how to avoid spiritual bypassing and really further our quest in a genuine way. It does not mean necessarily that you have to be my student or prescribe only to the Vedic path. What I am about to teach you is universal. And no matter what you are currently fascinated by, that could be the door, and I would invite you to go deeper rather than remaining superficially consuming bits and bytes of spiritual teachings. In a way, when we have too much going on, too many offerings, too many options, that's quite the opposite of what you should be really doing. Your mind should be less full of ideas and concepts and very clear as to where it is proceeding. So let us move forward and understand that we don't want to follow a spiritual trend of making spirituality a hobby or gaining a new personality, like bypassing and creating something wondrous, but inside you remain suffering, torn and broken. You don't necessarily want to have a spirituality that is adorned with a vocabulary and a wardrobe. You really want to connect with the truth of your spiritual being, with God, with the truth behind this universe. So it is about returning to your natural state. And there are many beautiful spiritual traditions that can do that. They can help us. Let us learn to help ourselves, and let us not get caught up in this Kali Yuga, time of darkness, with spiritual hacks. Now, have you heard of this beautiful statement called follow your bliss? Isn't that beautiful? Has it helped you at different times? Yes? I see some yeses. Has it hurt you at any time, follow your bliss, or confused you? Anyone? Now, follow your bliss. The doors will open where there were only walls. How magical. Like you can literally, you open your doors by following your bliss. This was a statement made by Joseph Campbell. Joseph Campbell, born on March 26, 1904, who transitioned in 1987, is a very well-known American professor of literature at the Sarah Lawrence College. And he worked with comparative mythology and comparative religion. And let me just tell you straight out that he was very influenced by the Vedas and the Upanishads, and in fact inspired by the Vedic hymn Purusha Sukta, which talks about the spiritual being having 1,000 heads. He wrote the most famous book, The Hero with 1,000 Faces. Now, he gave this teaching out, follow your bliss. And he gave it again, influenced by the Vedic Upanishads. And I'm quoting him. He wrote, "Now, I came to this idea of bliss because in Sanskrit, which is the great spiritual language of the world, there are 3 terms that represent the brink, the jumping off place to the ocean of transcendence. Sat, Chit, Ananda." My students are smiling. They know these words. The word Sat means being, original being. Chit means consciousness. Ananda means bliss or rapture. And I'm still quoting him. He continued, "I thought to myself, I don't know whether my consciousness is proper consciousness or not. I don't know whether what I know of my being is my proper being or not. But I do know that my rapture is proper. So let me hang on to rapture, and that will bring me both my consciousness and my being. I think it worked. He saw this, follow your bliss, not only as a mantra for himself, but as a helpful guide to every average American who was having a renaissance, to help them along their hero's journey. Okay, so then he said, if you follow your bliss, you put yourself on a kind of track that has been there all the while waiting for you, and the life that you ought to be living is the one you are living. That's what you will find. Wherever you are, if you're following your bliss, you're enjoying that refreshment, that life within you all the time. Now, very beautiful, writing, and it created a revolution of, sorts, because Campbell began sharing this idea during his college and public lectures, especially after his book when he became famous, from the 1970s onwards. And pretty much follow your bliss became a philosophy that resonated deeply with the American public, by the way, both religious and secular. And it has started a whole trend of follow your bliss, smoothies, follow your bliss retreats, follow your bliss yoga practices, follow your bliss in every which way, right down to I'm filing for a divorce because I'm following my bliss. I'm getting married to this person who gives everybody else a red flag in their mind because I'm following my bliss. So it really became, in positive and not so positive ways, a mantra that drove the Western Renaissance spirituality. But it also gave birth to a lot of hedonism. Is that how you pronounce that word, hedonism? Because in India I would say hedonism, but it's hedonism. The reason I want to speak like you is because I'm talking to you. So I want my language to come across. So when his students and many people pointed out to him that this is giving birth to hedonism, he grumbled and said, I should have said, follow your blisters. Which means he didn't really want to encourage hedonism. He didn't want to do that. But it happened because there is no context to following your bliss. So people started literally following their bliss outside. Now, Sat, Chit, or Ananda, I'll talk about it, is such a vast concept. It takes, the whole Vedic teaching is about discovering Sat, Chit, and Ananda, and you can't really take apart Ananda from discovery of the inner being, Sat, or that consciousness which is Chit. You can't really follow it, in your outer life. But the way he put it, it really became about following the bliss. What makes you happy? Following the pleasures. If this person and this teacher, staying with them gives me pleasure, I stay with them. Otherwise, I move on. I'm a happy camper. I'm going to change my contracts because I'm going to follow my bliss. So I'm not the only one criticizing it. Long, long ago, even when he was alive, we have many written criticisms of these teachings, including from a gentleman called Jeffrey Mason, who was actually a professor of Sanskrit in the University of Toronto. And he writes, when I met Campbell at a public gathering, he was quoting Sanskrit verses. He had no clue as to what he was talking about. He had the most superficial knowledge of India, but he could use it for his own aggrandizement. Now, this is not to say that Westerners cannot teach Sanskrit. From all the Vedic astrologers I know, my respect goes to an American Vedic astrologer. The foreword of my best-selling former book, Ayurveda Lifestyle Wisdom, was written by an American Vedic teacher. The point is not American and Indian. The point is the people who we are worshipping or giving or thinking they are sources of knowledge because they're quoting some fascinating bits and bytes from ancient traditions The people who have agreed to look up to guide us, guide our culture, guide our search, guide our quest, have they done their homework or not? The astrologer and the person who wrote my foreword and countless Western and European colleagues of mine who have done their work, I myself look up to them. But because we are exploring this, I've just given you one incident of how following your bliss became the Western search for spirituality in the gross world of our senses and connected it to our pleasure. What is bliss then really? What is Ananda? Bliss, Ananda, is that which is not related to our search outside. Because if my Ananda was in my partner, in my pet, in my cup of coffee, in my boat, in my house, at some time or the other when death, distance, destruction, diminution takes that away from me, then my bliss is up to them. Then I am nothing but a cosmic victim, the most vulnerable, frail thing alive. The whole purpose of the Upanishads, when they were saying Sat, bliss is connected to your inner being, Sat, to your inner consciousness, was that it has nothing to do with people and possessions outside you. This was a basic premise that Mr. Campbell, though he came from a good place and was clearly very joyous of his particular discovery, was in no way ready to make this a proclamation. And then countless gullible generations have converted this outer feel-good, pleasure-based, abundance-based, things-based spirituality into a new religion. Because then you're simply giving your ego more toys, and the journey to discovering your bliss within never began. Now, in my own life, I have had things come to me and taken away from me. When I was younger, as in emotionally younger, not necessarily physically younger, when I was spiritually younger, we all have spiritual childhood, adolescence, youth, adulthood, and sage-like experience. When I was younger, when things and people or relationships didn't work out, they would not only be a nuisance at that time, a problem, but it would be a hit upon me forever. Some part of me, ME, got diminished. But now, when things come to me, I don't get overexcited because my bliss is up to me. And when things get taken away, I'm human. It's still, you pinch me, it's going to hurt. It's still a little bit of a problem or a nuisance, but it doesn't take away my joy. Do you see that? There is a greater, we call it pinda. There is a greater deposit of bliss that I can, bliss, joy, okayness, calmness, positivity that comes from within me. Okay. So there was not at all a desire for things to go away, because we were told that we are human beings and we have come here to enjoy the world, the sunshine, the river, but we are not here to be dependent on them. This is so revelatory, don't you think so? If you had been told this, that your bliss is up to you, turn within, this would have led to a whole different movement versus follow your bliss, because it almost leads to an outward movement of tracking, following, questing your bliss. So it didn't do much, because anyway, in our ordinary human consciousness, though we have Satchit Ananda within us, we are incapable of experiencing pure Ananda. We drink a cup of coffee, we love it, and we say, oh, this gave me so much bliss, because that cup of coffee for a minute calm down our mind from searching anything else, and then you experience inner Ananda. So we experience inner Ananda via the cup of coffee, via the orgasm, via the cute puppy, via the beautiful sunrise. Why? Because at that moment, the mind and the senses, they just go like this. And the moment they stop questing, following anything else, in that moment, the inner Ananda shows up. But until we keep searching, we're not there yet. So therefore, but in an everyday sense, our senses, our mind, our ego that is attached, the last thing that connected us to our bliss, we are unable to go within. And the whole spiritual journey is about not letting your senses roam wildly in the world, looking for the next high, looking for the next thing that will give you your dose of bliss. You can say, I love my Starbucks coffee because it gives me pleasure of exactly 4 minutes. That's real. And then afterwards it gives me heartburn, and then I think, should I be drinking Starbucks or not? And then, and then it gives me emotional, mental, physical turmoil. It's another thing. That's how things happen in the world. So this was de-hacked. If our teachers knew the deeper truth, if they had done the work, they would know that this was de-hacked by the Upanishads. Bhagavad Gita is an Upanishad. Thousands of years ago, and Lord Krishna says the exact opposite of this teaching. He doesn't say follow your bliss. He says dhyato vishyan pumsaha sangasteshu pajayate sangat sanjayate kamaha kamat krodho bhijayate krodad bhavati sammohaha sammohat smriti vibhramaha Smriti Bhramshad Buddhi Nashaha Buddhi Nashat Pranashyati. What was Lord Krishna saying? The very opposite teaching. And this is the teaching, it is the essence of spiritual life that I have been giving to some of the students who have gone inwards in the search for bliss. They are still in the world. They still enjoy the world, but they are not dependent upon it. And what Lord Krishna is saying is, when a person dwells with the mind on sense objects, so the mind and the senses are focused on the sense objects, this lover who gives me, joy, this sofa that gives me the comfort, I must have this, I must drive this car that makes me look good. So when a person dwells with the mind on sense objects, the person experiences attachment to them, kamaha. It's not ordinary, yeah, that's interesting, that's a good car, it'd be nice if I had it, it's okay if I don't have it. It's like an attachment, I must have it. From attachment springs this excessive desire known as ragaha. And when this ragaha, it's not an ordinary desire. Even I don't mind desiring for a bigger car than I have today, no problem. A more comfortable car with heated seats, why not? But if it becomes ragaha, then I must have it. Why don't I have it by now? Why does my neighbor have it? Now I don't like them. See? This is ragaha, where it starts kind of clouding you. And when this desire is thwarted, it leads to krodha, anger. This is what Krishna had given, this 8-step fall, the ladder of fall, from being happy to not being at all happy. You become angry. That anger clouds your judgment. It leads to moha. It gives rise to delusion, known as moha. And then when you have moha, you can't think straight. Now you don't like your neighbor. Every time they smile at you, you frown. You don't know why. It's not their fault that they have more money and they're driving a bigger car that you could have. But by now you're angry with them. You have a delusion. Now you're angry with people who look like your neighbor. This is all delusion, false, wrong conclusions. And when there is delusion, moha, it leads to loss of memory, smriti vibhramsha. What does it mean? You forget all the learning that you had from past experiences, past teachers, past books. Now you only believe in your conclusions. And they're very tiny, collapsed, angry, grieving, delusional conclusions, but that's your only truth. And then when you lose your memory, there is nobody who can help you, because all your own teachings, your own learning, your own experiences cannot come to your rescue. And ultimately, it leads to complete viveka loss. You cannot judge between right and wrong, this path or that path, dharma or adharma, ethical or unethical behavior. You become your worst enemy, and it leads to pranashyati, it leads to untold suffering. Nobody can help you. But what are we doing when we are following our bliss outwards? We are going down this chain. But whenever we study the Bhagavad Gita carefully, we realize that everything our senses lay their eye upon is not the ultimate gospel. Everything our mind wants may be something we want or we don't want. But this was not taught. This is not taught when we are just taught little pithy statements, which then create a whole, a whole quest, a whole spiritual journey around it. So a delusion-filled mind, an anger-filled mind, a desire-filled mind, an attachment-filled mind, if you have those, this is the very opposite of bliss. Don't you agree? This is such deep, astute insight into the human behavior. So the purpose of the spiritual activity is to allow us to enjoy our sensory pleasures, but not become their slaves. To not lose our inner peace and our state of mind. And to gradually move more inwards, so that in the end, our need, our desires ultimately are less, because the person who has less lists of to-dos and must-haves, I don't know if some of you've had your list drop. Have you noticed that you actually feel an inner sense of bliss and okayness? Yes or no?
Yes.
And you still have what you need, but it's almost like nothing now can carry the power over you. I've had students who've told me that earlier, when they would walk through Macy's on Black Friday, because I'm teaching this right after Thanksgiving, everything would bother them because they had only so much money and there were such good sales and they wanted to buy everything. And they would come out of a department store feeling frustrated, less, having not achieved enough because they don't have a red sweater, or they don't have a special pen with crystals in it, or they don't have a special upholstered chair in their back of their car. And all that stuff made them feel less. But now these people told me that they can walk through a department store, enjoy everything, and walk out. Because the upholstered chair and that pen with crystals and that red sweater, that little ananda that they needed to get from that, they can get from within. So, of course, it didn't happen right away after one lecture, through meditation, through contemplation on this truth. So that is the goal. So this is just an example. I have nothing against Mr. Joseph Campbell, and I'm sure he has done great writing and teaching. But I think it more points to how we make our heroes and how we let our spiritual journey be guided by these teachings. Because after all, our empirical experience is that our bliss lies in things and people outside. It's our empirical experience. But that is what anybody will tell you. A spiritual tradition will tell you it lies within you, and here is how to find it. That is what a spiritual tradition like the Upanishads was really teaching versus what was put out to the American public. So when senses are controlled, they listen to you, your mind is calm and tranquil, that you overcome, you indulge a few desires, you are not ruled by the other desires, you will attain inner peace, inner stability, and in that quietness, Who knows? Bliss may emerge along with poetry, with creativity, with inspiration, with a good night's sleep. All of these are examples of bliss. So, this is the goal of Hinduism and the Vedas and the Vedic teachers, the Vedic scriptures like the Upanishads, because they were wanting us to not go for instant gratification that we've done over many lifetimes. What they wanted us to look was for the source of this gratification, which is within you. This is how you overcome your suffering and make friends with your inner bliss. So there is a concept with bliss which is called freedom. Are your senses free from their attachment to the world, to its things and people? When I look at my own dog, for example, I have a beautiful Labradoodle right now. Originally he belonged to my nephew, and now I'm raising him. And he's a beautiful soul. And I think he's a source of great joy for me, great pleasure for me. But when I look at him, I'm always cognizant of the fact that there is transience with his body, with my body, with my life as it is. So can I enjoy this beautiful, pleasurable, worldly gift aware? Can I keep my freedom? Because otherwise, when I lose this, or the fear of losing this, will take away my joy. So the concept of freedom of our senses, freedom of our mind, freedom of our thought process, and then the freedom to go within and encounter something deeper. This freedom is a real journey to bliss and not following your bliss. Now, one can argue that following your bliss was really following your bliss inward. So again, this is not about Joseph Campbell at all. This is just about how we take statements out of context, how writers place statements out of context from the Upanishads. Let me just borrow a little piece, throw it into my writing, and then how we follow that. This is a good teaching for us to see when we are studying in Zen Buddhism, Tantra, Yoga, Ayurveda, Vedanta. How deep has the teacher gone? How deep has their learning been? You know, and are they conveying me the whole piece or a big part of that piece, or just packaged, shiny particles of that tradition? So what did the Vedas do? So we're just talking about this one case, and then I'll talk more. The Vedas, for example, they talked about 4 paths: Bhakti Yoga, Jnana Yoga, Karma Yoga, Raja Yoga. In Bhakti Yoga, you surrender to God all your actions and all the benefits of your actions, and you achieve some bliss. In Jnana Yoga, you go inwards beyond the world of senses and mind, then you find your bliss. In Karma Yoga, you do good things for others, you act selflessly, and then you realize your mind has become very quiet and it's full of bliss. Genuine selflessness. I'm not talking about being a doormat, and I'm not talking about being codependent. I'm talking about valuable service to humanity, to animals, to other creatures, to our planet. In Raja Yoga, we meditate and calm our mind, and we reduce our thoughts, then we find bliss. So do you see? There are entire teachings. And in fact, in the proper traditional Vedic path, even these 4 are united. You work with Karma Yoga, Raj Yoga, Bhakti Yoga, and you prepare yourself for Jnana Yoga. So they are not silos, but this is a united journey. In duality-based teachings of Vedanta, happiness comes from good thoughts, from good even temper. In qualified duality, where you are told that you are an aspect of the higher power, you are told that you can achieve through divine grace. And through pure non-duality Vedanta, Advaita, your bliss is awaiting you when you have moksha, a union with your true self. So there are all these teachings. So therefore, I rest my case to say to you that when you hear another spiritual hack, be yourself. It doesn't mean your ordinary little self that is choking on beef jerky and, stale food from last night, burping away and thinking, why can't I get up and walk? And at 8 p.m. you're still in your pajamas in your bed. Don't be yourself. There is a small self and a higher self, or a wise self, or a shining self, or a light self that has to be discovered. Otherwise, we are just creating a self-centered spirituality. And be yourself. So I sit around and, and I don't do what I should be doing. This is a kind of wrong teaching. Another one is you're already enlightened. Another one is there is no such thing as enlightenment. That's not true. I myself have gone through a period of my life where mind felt cloudy. I talk openly about it. Where I had doubts. Where I thought I was taking right decisions, but they were not the best decisions for me, my family, my community, the world, the planet, the universe. Today I feel I have light inside me. That light makes me a restrained person, a responsible person, a genuine person, a dependable person. If I make mistakes, I openly accept them. I do have more light today. So don't believe in these, be yourself, you're enlightened right now. Here, take this mantra, repeat it all day, it shall enlighten you. These things are nothing but very shortcut teachings that don't allow you to discern. The Vedic teacher helps you discern between what is your true self. Yes, you don't need to buy it from outside. It will get revealed within you. But it's like covered with clouds. Just like the sun is always there, but some days you can't see it because the clouds are covering it. But the sun is still there. So the spiritual journey is like removing the clouds and letting your own light shine through. So yes, you are already enlightened in one sense, as in you don't need to buy the sun lives within you. But then to kind of just dismiss any work on your ego, any cleaning up, that will not work. Similarly, think positive. Think positive has a meaning and a purpose, especially when you tend to constantly look at the glass half full, but it cannot be the answer for everything. More than think positively, my teaching would be think realistically, think accurately. Because if you overly think positive, then you will not be able to plan accordingly. You will just positively visualize an outcome, but you will not do what is needed, what steps you have to take. Meet a lawyer, check with an engineer, double check your accounts if you have the money to do what you want to do. If you just imagine success, if you just positively visualize the outcome, you may not be ready to face some of the obstacles and challenges that come your way. You are not ready to take into account, like, what am I thinking? Is it accurate? How is it affecting my emotions? Am I being authentic here? What is my behavior? What would happen if things didn't work out? None of these thought processes come because I'm thinking positively. I'll just get up and visualize that I have awakened without necessarily, meditating or eating right or thinking in a separate way or apologizing where I need to or asking someone else to take responsibility where they need to. We don't do that. Accurate thinking is the way to go, and any deeper spiritual tradition, including the Buddha, has asked us not to have imaginary positive thinking, but to have realistic thinking. Positive fantasies will slow you down and distract you. And at the root of this positive thinking, which has also led to the whole attract what you want, manifest what you want, is another big confusion. And that's my last teaching in this section. The confusion is that I will use, instead of saying I'm a work in progress and that's okay, and that not everybody gets everything because there is a law of karma and there are unequal endowments, we are saying that by becoming manifestors and attractions, one, we are following our bliss, and number two, we human things, our ego thinks, we will use our willpower which up till now couldn't even take us for our morning walk, by the way. Okay? We're going to use our willpower to alter the universe. Okay? Now human ego has come to this level. We're just going to alter the universe. And this notion that we will transform our material circumstance through sheer personal willpower is applaud-worthy, but sadly, not real. I want to tell you that for this alone, Lord Krishna has taught karma yoga. And he said in his famous teachings of karmanyavadikaraste, he said, do not focus upon the outcome of your actions. They are not up to you. The outcomes of your actions are up to a greater will, a greater intelligence, an orchestration of so many factors. They are not just your mind and your little needs alone. The needs of the whole universe has to be considered when something comes your way or takes it away from you. One of my students came into a lot of money some years ago, and I said, it is the universe's will, accept it. Universe wants to work through you for some things. One of my students lost money. It is the universe's will. There is a giant mathematics going on. There is a higher power. But when we did away with our gods, threw away our religions, and started following our bliss, we also created theories where we are now using our willpower to change our material circumstance. And, I rest my case because these theories have been out and about for more than a decade. I don't think any significant change has happened to humanity's lot. They are attracting and manifesting away. They are just going down the ladder of desire, delusion, anger, grief, and sorrow. Over my many years as a spiritual teacher, I don't know how many hearts I have healed who felt they were personal failures because they could not attract or manifest. When they come to me and I teach them karma yoga, for example, I say, work hard and every night fall asleep like a baby. It is your sincerity that will move Lakshmi or Ganesha or Jesus towards you, or that nameless, formless God, because ultimately in the Vedas, God is a nameless, formless, omnipotent, omniscient dimension, consciousness, energy, awareness. It is your sincerity. So many people pray to Lakshmi. So many people, pray to the cheesy image of Lakshmi throwing dollars and coins through our hands. But Lakshmi will come out of turn and support you when you sincerely help an earthworm. When Lakshmi sees that you are being the divine mother in your own way, to tiny little insects, to stray dogs, to the poor in your community, you shall find so many doors open for you. So we are told, don't stress out on the outcome. If I was sitting here stressed out on the outcome, how many people are listening to me? Are they liking me? Are they making good comments? Should I do this? Should I do that? Maybe I'm attracting away a successful event. No, I'm bringing you my authenticity, my vulnerability, my genuineness, my presence, my inner connection with God, my own journey with truth. I'm here. What will happen due to this teaching may happen 100 years from now. That is up to someone else. Now do you see? I'm relaxed. Now my bliss doesn't go away. I'm like a child. I will play. I will build my sand castle. If the ocean wants, it will take it away. If the ocean wants, it will build a new castle for me. How did my sand castle get so big? Mother Ocean came and she dumped a lot of soil on it. I am happy to be part of a greater consciousness until I recognize that consciousness. So you see, the deeper teachings don't get us caught up in little things. And if you think about it, all the teachers who are teaching the law of attraction manifestation, they are not attracting their success. They are working hard for their success. They are writing books. They are going on a teaching circuit. They are having happening Instagram accounts and social media. They are working hard to be where they are, but they are teaching you to be daydreamers. And if you want to use your willpower, then use your willpower to be truthful, to be sincere, to be compassionate, and to move away the inner clouds and discover your inner sun. I know that I can talk hours and hours on this, but I'm going to stop because we are in a way continuing this discussion. But in the next part, when I come back after the Q&A, we're going to do a small Q&A. After that, I'll come back and I'll lead you through the 9-point realistic unhacking process that you can take your own self through it. This is not a process that somebody, manages for you. These are teachings that you can take home and become a much more alert and smart spiritual seeker of truth. And I've given you a few examples. Whenever you are coming across any spiritual tradition that is asking you to focus on one mantra, few yoga postures, one meditation twice a day, be careful. Even Lord Buddha didn't give to the world the Buddhist meditation to be done 20 minutes twice a day. This is not what Buddha taught. This is not how a great prince became God. This is not how a confused prince became a god. He was confused. His name was Gautama. He was confused. But he became an enlightened one. He gave knowledge. He gave wisdom. People lived with him for years to learn it. Can you be with one text of the Buddha and go deep? Can you be with a teacher of Upanishads and Veda and go deep? Don't reduce your greatest quest. If you have to be a mason or a carpenter or a sketch artist, you have to go for years to school. Why are you reducing your spiritual journey to one TED talk here, one podcast there, one retreat here? You can do all that, but they can take your mind away. Your senses get more and more clouded. Settle down, go deep, and come out changed. Your inner confused prince or princess, the ego, has to become enlightened. That is the root word of Buddha, comes from buddhi, the enlightened noetic mind, the true north of your mind, of your thinking, that you can reach. And don't let people tell you that there is no such thing as spiritual journey, there is no value in old traditions, because these ancient traditions like the Vedas, Buddhism, Zen, they have deep, deep roots. They have checks and balances that can prevent you from getting lost in the shadows and truly make progress day after day, month after month, year after year. We'll be right back with your questions.
Jaiman, welcome everyone. You know me as Aparna Amy Lewis. I've been typing along for many satsangas. I've been a student of Acharya Shunya for about 10 years now, and we're celebrating a special day today as this is the last satsanga of the 10th year of Acharya Shunya's Wisdom School, Vedika Global. And although Shunyaji has been teaching for many years prior to that and will continue to teach for many more, it's lovely to be together with, there's a few senior students here that have been with Shunyaji for quite a long time. So we will be continuing to ask questions. I've gotten your questions that you've typed in on the chat. If you have any further, please add those and I will see if we have time. We'll keep adding those. So with that, I welcome Shunyaji to our Q&A.
Welcome, and let us hear what is the first question. We are going to do Q&As twice this time so that we can stay specific to the subject.
All right, so our first question is, how can we be aware of spiritual hacking or bypassing while chanting mantras? I'm concerned that it might be happening to me.
Right, so mantra is one of the biggest reason for spiritual bypassing. It's become really popular thanks to swamis and teachers coming out of India and saying, here, chant this mantra. And while mantras have great power, but each mantra has to be given in a context And there's a lot of teaching that has to go about it. But when we simply mechanically rote way go through our 108 or 1008 mantras, you could be a victim of spiritual hacking. And you can know it if you've been doing it for some time and you don't feel a sense of settledness, peace, and resolution. I mean, I have a student sitting here, Kamla, you tell me how you chant Gayatri Mantra, right? And your mother just transitioned. Did you use that? And did that help you?
Definitely.
Now, for Kamala, she has been my student for some 10 years now. And the only mantra I have taught her is the Gayatri Mantra. But Gayatri Mantra is a mantra of 9 words, 24 sounds. For the last 10 years, all the fill-in gap teaching has been about the Gayatri Mantra, preparing her mind to benefit from the Gayatri Mantra. Otherwise, it's just a bunch of words. The real bhava, the real unpacking of that mantra happens in a less clouded and cluttered mind. And if mantras were going to take us home, then I tell you, India is an enlightened nation. Everybody gets up in the morning, and for 2 hours in the morning, they'll be doing mantra away to their ancestors, to their local guru, to their deity, and then let's not forget the 9 grahas, the planets. The Rahu is bothering me, Mars is bothering me, but the life there is still tense, tired, and irritable. Why? Because the mantra didn't unpack anything. I'm sorry, I don't want to sound like I'm the teacher with the bad news. Okay, I don't want to say that. I want to tell you that mantra can be a huge blessing, but then you should have the surrounding protocol of how to live with that mantra. Kamla here, my student, she eats healthy. She has taken account of her own thoughts, her speech, her behaviors, her impact on her clients and on her family. She has gone back and forth to take care of an aging mother. In all of that, the mantra flowers and supports you when you need it. But if you're just doing it, so I don't know how you're doing it, and bows to you, bows to the teacher who gave it. Again, remember, there's no conspiracy theory here. We just tend to settle for less and think this is going to save us. I've met people, who say, I say, well, what are you doing about your inner emotional tension? Oh, I have this mantra and I chant it and I feel better. For how long? 5 minutes. So therefore, if that benefit is very short and there is no stable light, which is also increasing within you, and other people can't say to you, we live with the same person, but you are different. You should get that feedback from other people too. Your light should benefit you and your loved ones. She gets that. I'm giving an example. I'm not trying to put my student on a pedestal. She's sitting here, so I'm telling you. But if she was somebody whose life was falling apart, and then she comes and tells me, Shunyaji, I chant 1,000 Gayatris a day, I would tell her, stop it. I'm sad I taught you the Gayatri Mantra. I need to go and do some homework around why I taught you. Okay? All right. Hope that helps.
Another question came in. What is the best way to discern that one is going deep in their spiritual teaching versus a buffet of spirituality, but without becoming dogmatic or rigid?
Flexibility. At some point, we can do a lot of dating, especially if you are a Westerner. At some point, you have to become monogamous, or you have to agree to be not monogamous, but some agreements are required. So you can date all the spiritual teachers you want, but at some point you have to settle down. When you settle down, you should settle down with a tradition, for example, that does not ask you to be dogmatic. For example, in the Vedas, I have never asked anyone to be dogmatic. In fact, if I Kamla, you're sitting right there. When she first came to me, she said, I'm a practicing, She had some tradition that she was practicing, and I said, you stay with me, you'll work out a better that tradition, because the teaching I'm giving you is about your higher self. And it doesn't matter whether you are Buddhist or Sikh or Christian or Catholic or atheist. You will just become a more real you, a more joyful you. I never checked in with her about that, but the fact that she's still here means she didn't feel the dogma. Again, this is what's coming up in my next set of teachings around discernment. You have to discern between a tradition that is asking you to jump into a box, pull a zip and sit there, or are you being asked to settle down and go deep into a tradition that will ultimately bring out your universality, that will ultimately bring out your higher expanded awareness. But you calm down and you settle down with one university, one college, a couple of professors or teachers because you want to go deep into a subject. Dogma is something you should avoid everywhere, not just in spirituality.
And then a student here asked, when we're talking about that inner bliss or that bliss, how do we know if it's my ego talking or my inner enlightened self? How do we find that spiritual bliss and really be able to discern that difference?
It's not going to be easy to find that spiritual bliss. Let me tell you first up. There's a desire to somehow expedite it and, oh, Shunyaji, now I've been in 5 satsangs with you, I didn't feel my bliss. You're not going to feel it anytime soon, baby. First, there will be a reduction of suffering. And the way to discover your inner bliss is by first looking at how you were chasing it outside and what you got was really transient pleasure. And transient pleasure always comes with some thorns. You'll either become a slave of it, or it will be expensive for you to maintain, or you will be asked to constantly feed it to give you some pleasure. Does that make sense? You know, whether it's cheesecake that gives you your bliss, or whether it's a certain person who gives you the bliss. Ultimately, it all becomes high maintenance, yes or no? So ultimately, the outer bliss, the worldly bliss, leads to some pain, some loss, some suffering down the road. Okay? Or it is temporary, it's transient. So first but earlier, prior to learning about the bliss lies within you, now you can go to your lover, you can go to your cheesecake with the knowledge that this is not my God. That makes a big difference. Then you're a little detached. You are a little moved away from it. And therefore, you're less invested. And you have made less promises. And you have less addictive behavior. And you have more ability to say no or yes, or we'll think about it. Does that make sense? Already, this cuts down your emotional suffering. You are now what's called as a free operator. You are now, kind of cruising, and nothing can really grab you and keep you and box you and put a whip over you, because otherwise I'm going to take away the cookie. It's not true. Because just first it begins with where it's not there. So everybody talks about yoga, which means union, right? And you want to go into a union with your own Satchitananda, your inner Ananda, your true self, which is happy. But nobody talks about Viyoga. I'm talking about it in my book coming up, Sovereign Self. But Viyoga is first you separate from where your bliss is not. So now you don't have to go back to your spouse and say, excuse me, I realized that my bliss doesn't lie in you, so I'm going to practice Viyoga with you. Don't exactly do that. But now you can say, I really appreciate my spouse for making me hot tea in the morning, for hosing down the backyard, for taking the dog for a walk, for watching some silly movies with me from Bollywood, because my teacher is Indian. Fine, right? You can do that. You can thank them for the pleasure. But don't be shocked now when they give you some pain either. That's one level. Your suffering reduces. Your investment reduces. Your blind crazy expectations reduce. That itself is a release on you, and you feel a little more joy. Then you will start kind of becoming more introverted, and then I'll teach more steps in the next section. But you will start finding that you're sitting quietly, you're not so invested in everybody else. You have a teacher, but again, you're not blind. Your bliss doesn't lie with your teacher. Your teacher is a respected source of knowledge. Your lineage, if you have one, is a wonderful source of knowledge and wisdom and blessings. That's it. But you know that you have bliss within you. All your relationships have less push and pull and control and power over you. Even things come in your life, things go away. As you become quieter and quieter, and then you'll have to study further and go deeper and meditate, you shall find that you're singing a song. You're writing a poem. You're cooking amazing food and you feel happy for no reason. Stuff got taken away. Losses happened. You're okay. These are all signs of bliss. Bliss doesn't mean laughing Buddha. No, laughing Buddha is a symbol of inner joy. It's a very potent symbol of inner joy. That's why he has a big belly. He's full of himself. But you're not going to laugh necessarily. But tranquility, serenity, sense of love for the little bee that came into your garden, this is all signs of bliss. Does that make sense? So it goes in phases. Next.
And finally, sometimes we've had those authentic experiences of our own inner bliss, and we truly have connected with that, and we felt that, and yet there are still circumstances which arise or seasons in our life in which it feels like it's much harder to connect with that. How do we, as spiritual students, how do we stay in that? How do we retain that inner bliss?
But that's a great start. Many people have never experienced a state of okayness or well-being from within, even though it's dark and gloomy outside. Have you? Have you? Tell me. If you have you? That's a great start, because then you know that it's up to me now. And you stop blaming your finger outside so much, or blame God for taking away important people in your life or your pets. It's a great start, but it becomes more and more retained slowly. That is why true spiritual journeys take time. In my tradition, it takes at least 12 years, and I'm a slow learner, so it took me 40. Yeah, I didn't take on my first spiritual student until 40. Even though legally, as in process-wise, I could, because I was an Acharya with a title, but I didn't. I also had fluctuating peace when I'm inward, and then suffering when I'm more outwards. We are all outwards, but I'm not hooked outwards. Even right now, I don't know, you may think I'm talking to you. I'm having my own thing inside me. See? I'm talking from a very inward place. So you live in the world, but you're very inwardly poised. That's what happens. It takes time. And you can tell how you're doing when devastating circumstances won't devastate you. That's great. Even if you have this one memory that this too shall pass and I will come through stronger, that is an indicative of an inner source of bliss. What does bliss mean? Bliss means okayness. Bliss means peace. Bliss means creativity. Bliss means the ability to reinvent yourself. Bliss means the ability to stand tall when everything wants to pull you down. It comes from within. It does not come from outside. Don't blame the others. They can only give you pleasure, but pleasure's twin brother or sister is pain. When the pain comes, here comes the pain, now it becomes a pleasure. Doesn't that happen? Yeah. Even, you can love your pets, and when people say we love our pets because they don't talk back to us. But even the pets give you pain when they die, when they age, when they get lost. nothing in this world comes without some pain inbuilt into it. And the great teachers like Krishna, Buddha, saw through it. If you look at, and if you look at the deeper traditions, the deeper religions, if you look at Zoroastrianism, if you look at Sikhism, if you look at Jainism, if you look at Buddhism, if you look at the deep mystical teachings of Christianity, one thing I want to say in support of religions is they gave a fuller picture. They just didn't give, they gave some moral teachings too, so that we could declutter our mind. They just didn't teach us how to be, using one little teachings like follow your bliss or attract what you want, or you're already enlightened, so don't worry. They didn't do that. They didn't minimize it to that extent. So there's something to be said about human religions that's worthy. Yeah.
Thank you, Shanti.
Welcome. So we'll be right back. If you have become excited by not wanting to be caught up in spiritual hacks, which happens to all of us, by the way, but if you want to now learn the Vedic preparatory process of your inner mind consciousness so that you are constantly free of spiritual hacks that also prevent spiritual bypassing, then stay on. And while I change some things here on my end to be able to present you the next set of teachings, I would like you to write to me. Tell me where you come from and tell me if you appreciate this topic. So just write appreciate, because it's been 1 year since I've been teaching the global satsang. I hope to continue teaching till I have voice. But I'm still looking for feedback from you. And where do you want me to go deeper? Let me know that also. Believe me, my team picks up all those comments, sends them to me, and I have access to what you're saying. Thank you. See you soon. Welcome to my global satsang. I want to take you down a teaching that is very ancient, and it is an inbuilt concept of preparing the mind, preparing your consciousness to become a very qualified seeker of higher truths, truths that are not part of our mundane world. They require a different mindset. They require more purity in the mind, better values, clarity, a decluttered state of being, so that you can then quest for a light that is hidden somewhere inside you. It's concealed and under your own mental clutter. So these preparatory practices were originally given out for students of non-duality, Vedic non-duality, known as Advaita Vedanta. They are present, they are available in the Vedas, in the Upanishads, and then they were commented upon at depth by the master of Advaita Vedanta, Shankaracharya, from 8th century. However, I believe that these practices can be utilized by seekers of every path, because they are universal teachings, and you can use them to go deep into whichever path has appealed to you, be it, the path of the Sikh teachers, Mahavira in Jainism, the Buddha, Zen, or you want to be a better Jew. It doesn't matter. There is deep spiritual mystical teachings in a lot of traditions. How to not spiritually bypass, how to not be caught up by spiritual hacks. Well, sadhana chatushtaya. This is the preparatory Vedic fourfold path, and I'm going to take you through a brief PowerPoint that we created so that you can see some of the terminology. Because it's in Sanskrit, we thought it's better if you see those concepts here. So this fourfold path is, we are now going to embark on an exploration of a preparatory Vedic fourfold path known as sadhana chatushtayam. So don't worry about this map. It's right there, so that when you come back and re-watch this video, you have it. But I'm going to just go forward. But basically, it's 4 parts to this process, the self-check process, and the third path is broken up into 6 more steps. So in total, you can say there are 9 steps, and I'm going to go through it one by one, and you will become really excited that how there is already a consideration by the compassionate seers of the Vedas to ensure that our mind does not lead us down alleys we don't want to go and really keep us on our path. So the first practice that we are all asked to assiduously embody in our life, like it's an adjective, you know, like how we say to ourselves, well, I am a tough cookie, or I don't want to be taken for granted. How about you adopt this new practice called, well, I believe in discernment before acting, before talking, before choosing, before signing up for workshops, before taking on a guru, before leaving a guru. I believe in discernment, spiritual discernment. What does it mean? You know, in day-to-day life, continue practicing between what is permanent and what is transient. Ultimately, spirit is about something that's permanent, you know, something that is immortal. That is what spirituality is about, right? So is your spiritual path taking you towards transient things, transient pleasures, or is it introducing you to something permanent? For example, your inner bliss is permanent. It will stay there even at the time where there might be outer things that are being burnt down or taken away from you, or there is death or depravity. So always have this tendency to evaluate something that's permanent or transient. In the same way, when you find a teacher, is that teacher somebody who is going to be there with you, or is that teacher kind of just passing through your town? Something as simple as permanent versus transient. Do I have a way of reaching this teacher? Does this teacher have some sense of an ongoing continuity? Or does the teacher just show up and teach a thing here, there? So in mundane ways, you can look at permanence and transience, and in deeper ways, you can look at permanence and transience. Reality and appearance. Is this a reality? What I'm believing, that the person sitting in front of me doesn't like me because they didn't smile back the way I smiled at them with 1,000 volts, and they responded with a 50-volt smile, so they don't like me. Is that a reality, or is that an appearance that appears to my mind that they don't like me, but probably they are in their mind caught up with something, and so they didn't give me back that smile. But we are constantly taking every idea, every thought in our mind as the ultimate gospel. But we have to constantly look at that. In my own mind, when things would come up, such as like, well, so-and-so person said this to hurt me, I have to then look at, is it the reality? Like, are they still hurting me? Have they moved beyond where they were? Have they gone ahead in their own understanding? Were they even knowing they could hurt me, or were they hurting themselves so much that they hurt me and they hurt everybody? Is this a reality that they are terrible people, stone throwers that I need to move away from? Or were they just broken people who don't know how to talk, love, and express their needs? Then I'm able to come back to that person and be in the now. Because otherwise, if I just believed in an appearance, then the appearance is that I'm the victim, they're an aggressor. And it's permanent and eternal. So we have to constantly discern and act. That helped me. That helped me move forward in certain relationships. And then there were certain relationships where I had to say, enough. We're done. Because it was very clear that their niceness was an appearance. Their being very disciples was being an appearance. Their being very flattering students was an appearance. In reality, they were just people who wanted to be feed off of me. Do you see? If we don't discern, we're just going to get caught up, and our bliss would be cluttered in all our projections. Finally, dharma and dharma. Adharma. Dharma is the word for being ethical. And when you're ethical, it's not just for you. You can't just say, well, I have dharma for me. Your dharma should not hurt anyone. And adharma means where you may gratify yourself, you're selfish, you're self-absorbed, but somewhere somebody suffers because of you. If you are a spiritual student, you will discern, and by this discernment, you will know if your guru is a reality or is it an appearance. You'll know. You have to be willing to discern. You can't just say, oh, that person has 1 million followers, so they must be right. You have to use your own discernment. Similarly, you might walk into a prison and you might come across somebody who has committed 7 murders. And that person has been put in a very remote prison. But when you look into their eyes, you might see that they have become pure. Then you have to love them. You just can't go. Spiritual seekers don't just go by what others tell you. You have to discern. This is how I discern. Does that help you? This is a very short teaching. But give yourself the permission to now act and judge based on discernment. Sometimes it might slow you down, especially in the beginning. I say openly things like, well, I'll think about it. I'm not there yet. I don't know. Let me evaluate. Let me ask for inner guidance. Then I discern and I discern and I rediscern if I have new information. And just because you're enlightened, you don't stop discerning. Or just because you are now a teacher, you don't stop discerning. Discerning is a way of life of the conscious person. Whether you are a teacher, a senior student, or a beginner, doesn't matter. It's our way of life. We use our inner reasoning, analyzing faculty. We don't just go by our first impressions. When you discern properly, which is known as vivekaha, it leads to what is known as vairagyam, which is cultivated non-attachment. What does it mean? Vairagyam literally means you renounce the fruit, the renouncing of the enjoyment that you will get from the actions of this world and hereafter. What does this mean? What it means is, when you discern and discerning becomes a way of life, you ultimately realize that nothing in this world lasts. This is what you discern. You realize that impermanence is outside you. Even your body is impermanent. Your thoughts, your mind is impermanent. But the awareness within you, the witness within you is the only permanent entity. When you realize that, you tend to be a little non-attached. Doesn't mean cold. Doesn't mean indifferent. You're just not grasping for the life of you to the world, its things and its people and its opportunities and its experiences and its promises. No. You're a bit like, may I use the word cool? You're like a little cool going through life. You're a little fine, So you therefore will move away because you've discerned. You will be non-attached from things that are no longer worthy of attachment. And at the end of it, you'll be a little non-attached because it's this attachment in the world that makes us then seek bliss in it, attract more things in it. We just stay in a worldly container. You become a little non-attached. You've not found yourself yet, but you're a little judiciously separate. There's a little breathing room between you and the people of this world, your ambitions, your ideas. Are you understanding? Okay, that makes sense. So then life's slings and bows will not hit you that hard. This is known as vairagyam. Because of vairagyam, I wear loose clothes of being an acharya, loose clothes of being a wife, loose clothes of being a mom. What does loose clothes mean? Loose clothes means I can slip into different clothes. I'm not stuck in clothes. I'm not, the zipper is not hurting me. It's fine because ultimately I'm a spirit. I'm a witness of all these roles. That is what vairagyam will take you. So when teachers demand absolute loyalty, absolute faith, you give loyalty, but non-attachment should be a way of life. What if the teacher dies? Some people go into trauma because their teacher died. Hey, the spiritual teacher should have told you by now that don't cry for the body. Do you see what I mean? So, hang loose, okay? I love slang. Okay, now the third part. It is called, it has many words among them. It's called Shad Sampat. Shad means 6 and Sampat means treasures. So there are 6 inner treasures, or embodying 6 behaviors that you learn from a teacher. This is an image of myself talking to some students. So the first inner treasure that you want, it's an inner behavior that you cultivate. Nobody will tell you to cultivate it. They will tell you, cultivate a sharp mind, cultivate a assiduous mind, cultivate a manifesting mind, cultivate an attracting mind, cultivate an abundant mind. But the ancient teachers say cultivate a tranquil mind, an equanimous mind. So this doesn't come from repression. It doesn't come from repression of your thoughts or emotions or memories, but it comes from this knowledge that you, who is the witness of the mind, has some power over it. You are the spirit, the mind is your equipment, you're not the mind, and you can kind of observe it, give credence to some thoughts, let the other thoughts come under, they are not real, unreal, past, while I'm in the present, that happened in the past. This is a memory, this is a reality. So you have to be like a housekeeper. And sometimes when you are doing Shama, you might require a therapist even. Especially in Kali Yuga, where family system has broken down and we grow up with too many traumas. Children grow up with abandonment, trauma. Parents themselves are finding their bliss somewhere else. So the child, gets pushed away. So it's a very outward energy of everybody, not an inward. So children get neglected. So sometimes it might take a whole lifetime doing Shama, but it's like you need that. You want to cultivate a tranquil mind. And a tranquil mind doesn't go by screaming at everybody else, leave me alone, give me my space, go away. And all the homosexual people go away, all the immigrants go away, all the people of color go away, all the people who look poor and make me feel guilty go away, all the people of a different sex that I don't like go away. No. You don't change anything in the world. You change your attitudes. You change your perceptions. This takes time, and this requires an exposure to a teacher who can give you ongoing ability to cultivate tranquility. This includes maybe meditating. This includes maybe, spending time in nature. It means really cultivating a beautiful inner mind that's not exploding every minute. Maybe not externally, but internally, feeling irritable, if you're feeling victim all the time, if you feel like you want to tell everybody a thing or two every time, you've lost your tranquility. Why should you have to tell everybody a thing or two? And why should everybody have the power to irritate you? That means you need more Shama, more work on your mind, and the spiritual journey invites you. Now, if a spiritual tradition tells you to not question, have no doubts, then clearly it's a fundamentalistic and tradition, and the teacher is not open, and you'll have a very untranquil mind as a result. But you want to cultivate tranquility within. After you have a tranquil mind, it's very scientific. You can't control your senses earlier because the non-tranquil mind keeps running outside for tranquility. But once you have tranquility, you can move on to the next treasure, which is Dhamma, a controlled use of senses. You can go to Las Vegas, you can enjoy all the sex you want, you can have a beautiful wardrobe with collector items. It doesn't matter. You can enjoy the world, its buffet of the 5 elements, except that you should, just like you take your dog for a walk, the dog should not take you for a walk, otherwise you don't know where you land up. In the same way, you want to tell your senses where to go. Your senses should not tell you that, oh, by the way, I must eat this, drink this, watch this, smell this, snort this. It should not be like that, because then these senses will pretty much make you captive. Your mind will become turbulent. Forget about a turbulent, a journey to tranquility and to ultimate peace. You'll be busy trying to manifest everything, but nothing's going to really happen. So it's important to know that the control of the senses has nothing to do with suppression of the senses. The Vedas are one of the first traditions that don't impose celibacy or even vegetarianism on anybody. You don't have to prove a point and be holy and freeze off your senses from the world and live in a cave to do anything. You can be in the world, but you have senses that roam in it like master, not a slave of the senses. That's the image that you should carry. Then the third one is known as uparama or uparati, which means cultivating. I gave it a new word. It has many meanings: inner stability, inner inwardness. I'm going to call it inner resoluteness now onwards. It is the result of judicially applying the first four: viveka, vairagyam, shama, dhamma. So then you find that in relation to the things and events that are happening in your life, you have an inner poise, an inner fulcrum. This is now, you're more inwardly driven now. You have an inner way of responding to things. So you may walk into, you might be on your spiritual journey coming across spiritual teachings or spiritual hacks that push you here and there and invite you and seduce you. But you have an inner resoluteness to stay on your path. And value to this mature behavior is the knowledge of Swadharma, Purushartha, and Ashrama. And very quickly, Swadharma means you shall know, do you want to be? There are four kinds of Swadharma, propensities. Are you meant to be a wealth-earning entrepreneur? Then you will remain an entrepreneur without any guilt or trying to prove a point or write away all your riches to prove that you're spiritual. You can stay wealthy. You can enjoy some pleasures in life like home, family, gardening, food. That's a pleasure Swadharma. The third Swadharma is you might be a voice for the underprivileged. You might be an upkeeper of dharma. You might be a leader, a politician. And the fourth Swadharma is you might be a seeker of higher truth. Whatever it is, you know who you are and you're comfortable with who you are. You're not apologetic. You don't suddenly walk into some guru's presence who say, take off your engineering clothes, wear these white clothes, wear this mala and sit down. Now your engineering life is over and only you should serve me, serve my ashram, serve God and and up till now your whole life was a waste. No. You must stay true to your Swadharma, and within that, at some point, the engineering will turn into, an inner engineering. Your wealth will become a source for helping spiritual and humanitarian work. Your pleasure, you might make beautiful garlands for God. So who you are will grow into a beautiful mystical aspect. You don't have to change. So anytime you're asked to change your vocation, leave your house, check into some place and stay there forever to prove your spiritual point, be careful. Use discernment. The next piece is, so you're peaceful. Now you're inwardly anchored. You know who you are. That really works. I have a student sitting here. He is into marketing. He's a beautiful teller of stories. But because he came into spiritual marketing, he feels he is a consciousness, he's a brander of consciousness. He wants to help spiritual teachers tell their story. And he's using discernment. So he doesn't have to say, oh no, marketing is such a terrible thing. After all, I want liberation and truth. No, in the world, you're a marketing person. Let your spiritual journey make it shine some more. Okay. So these are the Swadharma. And knowledge of it gives you inner poise. Nobody tells you what to do with your life. Purushartha means the four goals of life, which allows you to have pleasure, kama, including sexual. Artha, which means accumulate money, house, alone. No guilt. Then dharma, you are asked to cultivate some higher virtues. And finally, moksha, you are asked to find a teacher, settle down, go deep, and find out who you really are deep inside. And once you know what your goals are, you don't have to feel guilty because you spend a few hours at work, or you put away some money in the bank, or you go to a buffet and enjoy yourself, or go for a vacation. All of that should be part of your spiritual journey, not like some condemned part of it, which is a very big part of spiritual hacking going on. Like, just, it's not good, it's less, it's cheap. And I will tell you how it has to happen, and this is what you have to do. That's not the way, at least in the Vedic path. Finally, there is the concept of ashrama. Ashrama means you might be a pure student. Then I'm a student, so I must tune into my teacher's satsang or classroom or whatever. You make it a priority. You might be a householder. That is the second ashrama. So you might say, Shunya ji, for example, my student who's a householder might say, I'm looking after my aging mother or my young child, so I will not tune in live. I'll catch you later. All right, because you have other duties also. Third one is where you become a little bit of a monk, like an introverted monk. So then you might say no to some party even at your best friend's house. But you won't feel guilty because you will know that I'm withdrawing from the world. I want to spend more time meditating, going over my teacher's writings or studying an Upanishad. Fine. And the fourth ashrama is sannyasa, where nobody tells you what to do. You don't tell it what to do. Your soul is purely living out of you. So I can't even explain it to you. That is the fourth stage. But at this fourth stage, you feel genuine oneness with beings. You feel comfortable, you feel okay, you feel connected with your inner bliss. Do you see that? These knowledge is given. You can't get it with one-line hackers like enlightenment doesn't exist. Okay, enlightenment may not exist, but a life with greater light does exist. And let's try and switch it on, folks. And yes, there is pleasure outside to have. Let's have it guilt-free. But if you're somebody who's going more inwards, would you want to eat stale, terrible food? Would you want to stay drunk at night? You may not want to. You might make different choices. So this gives you uparati. You're more inwardly focused. You stop going to therapists and astrologers and asking, or life coaches and asking them what to do. You're led from within. I have spent hours and hours sharing this, and I hope that on my YouTube channel, I will continue releasing more and more older videos on Swadharma, on Purushartha, and on Ashrama. Let's make that happen if we can. I'm just talking to my team members here. The fourth one is Titiksha. Titiksha means cultivating forbearance. Now, I wish we were telling the world cultivate forbearance instead of saying attract everything going okay in your life. Because everything doesn't go okay in life. The spiritual scientists have studied this planet and they've said it's half day, half dark. There is youth, there is old age. There is birth, there is death. So when good times come, difficult times also come. Get real. This is where you are. Stop burying your head in the sand and fantasizing that you're not here. You're stuck. Your soul is here. It's journeying through this loka called the loka of death, mrityu loka. This is not the fun loka. Do better next time. In this planet, this is it. You gotta cultivate forbearance. That's it. Me too. So, you will encounter on your path some obstacles mainly due to past karma. One of the karma is that we came here, and then some past karma. There's the law of karma which says that good and bad things happen to us, not to punish us, but because there is a higher power which is formless, can be known as God, Goddess, and they are an ocean of grace, and difficulties emerge so that we can understand how to act and not act unconsciously from it. But as I tell my students, milk that difficulty and come into greater consciousness. I just told my student Aruna, who just went through the loss of a loved one. Like, milk this sorrow. What does milk mean? It doesn't mean she can smile or laugh when she's suffering from a heartbreak, but she can really say, wow, I'm in it. I'm in the darkest place. I'm where I thought I'd never want to be. I'm standing where I thought I'd crumble. I can actually drive a car when I thought my hands will shake. There is some other thing that's supporting me right here. This is forbearance. And this comes from this telling the human being, you're not just the weak, pathetic thing. You are an invincible soul. You're a boundless being. And whenever obstacles come to you, you actually have 500 times more strength to find more than that obstacle. The thing is, you can't find that strength. You can light the matchstick in a very bright sunlit day and you won't notice it. You notice the lit matchstick only when it's dark. Find your inner matchstick when everything is dark outside you. But if you're not told that, if you're told, here, chant the mantra, it might help, as it helped my student Kamla. But you have to know that this mantra is not giving you power from outside alone. There is a direct connection between you and your higher power, which is God. Yet you are awakening your own powers. Does that make sense? So therefore, forbearance is something you want to cultivate. Titiksha, because ups and downs, hot and cold, dark and light. You see, health and ill health, this will come your way. And if you don't cultivate forbearance, then you will fall off your spiritual path, or you will buy into expensive things to fix you. I remember this one person, and she bought a $50,000 something metallic called a yantra, a Sri Lakshmi yantra, to fix her. And the Pandit from India cheated her and gave it to her for $50,000. And then she was my Ayurveda student. And on my students' graduation, I thought I'll give them these $4 yantras. I'd actually bought them for $4 each in India, which is a lot of money in rupees, by the way, so I'm not cheap. I've splurged on them. But it only came down to $4, and on their graduations, I gave them the same mantra. That girl started crying. I said, why are you crying? She said, I purchased this exact yantra, which I'm carrying in my wallet to help me, for $50,000. We turned it around. It was even made in the same place, Varanasi, from the same, place. And I said, and by the way, since you've been carrying this yantra, did anything change? She said, well, I did find you. I said, oh, well, I'm a $50,000 teacher. I wish you'd donated to my organization. So when did she buy this? She bought this when she had a breakup from, a couple of relationship, not couple, maybe one or two, something happened. Some scare of cancer happened. And so somebody told her about this, teaching and this puja, and the person really did it. He came over on a business class ticket from India. He stayed at their house for 3 days, ate cereal in the morning, and led pujas all night to make it look really important. And then he gave them the $4 yantra. So fix it. This is called a spiritual hack. Instead, she could have said, this too shall pass. If difficulties have come my way, I'm being asked to discover my infinite ability to meet them. Shraddha means cultivating trust in two things. One is the teacher, and the other is the actual source of the knowledge known as Shastra or scripture. Then who's a teacher? Because this is a big thing, Well, don't cultivate trust in any teacher who asks you for blind trust on day one. All Vedic teachers only ask for functional trust. Don't be obnoxious in their face, but try and be discerning. Watch them. Examine them. Check it out if they have some past students who've had terrible experiences. What's going on? Is there stuff about them on the website? Look it up. Look me up. Then, gradually, let them win your trust. Okay. And who is the teacher in our tradition? And so then you might have some qualifications in every tradition. In Buddhism, for example, in Buddhism, there is a whole teaching on who's a teacher. So in our tradition, in the Vedic tradition, a teacher always has a teacher. They always have a lineage. They don't have breakaway. They don't break away from their lineages, because that just means they had their ego come in. They are not self-declared either. There is a whole knowledge that has to be passed on, so they need a human teacher. They can't just say, this rock is my teacher, this river is my teacher. They are very inspiring, the rock and the river. But a teacher has to talk in your language. If I'm a dog, I need a dog teacher. If I'm a cat, I need a cat teacher. I'm a human body, I need a human teacher. This knowledge has to be conveyed. So they have a teacher. So, and they have knowledge. They are Shrotriya. They can convey the knowledge, like these 9 steps. You have to be able to convey it. Take out doubts. Be very clear. And this all comes not from them, but from their ultimate teacher, which is the scripture. So there are 2 requirements for our teacher. They have to be not only Brahmanishta, which means not only do they have to be more inwardly sourcing their bliss, their freedom, their joy. That is called Brahmanishta. They are awakened to a large extent, because there is no quality to who's awakened, who's not, but they are more inwards, and you should watch out for them. Are they doing that? Are they finding their capacity to reinvent themselves, to be poised in dark times? Or are they falling apart? Are they having little sexual scandals on the side? What's going on here? Are they just having a sexual scandal and then saying, oh, sorry, we had an oops moment, sorry? It doesn't work like that. So they are really comfortable, Brahmanishta, and it's not enough them to be in a meditative trance or even silent in our tradition. They have to be able to speak to you, teach to you, convey to you the map. Say we went on this step, you can too. And that is known as Shrotriya. So we need both these things, and we only trust such a teacher. In your tradition, go back, look, research. What are the requirements for a teacher? Not everybody who studies Buddhism for 6 months in Tibet can become a Buddhist teacher in Buddhism. I know this. To be a teacher in Buddhism, you have to go through years of training through the Sangha and really take on the vows, including of celibacy. You can't be somebody who's having, oops moments as a Rinpoche. You can't. So, who is a teacher? Trust only that. And number 2, ultimately the teacher should not convey their heart to you. I have Aparna sitting next to me. Honestly, if we are not talking about Vedanta, Ayurveda, Yoga, I don't know if I have anything to talk to her about. They are not gossiping friends. Teachers are conveying a system, a knowledge. And catch it while the teacher is alive and your faculties are alive to have the transmission. Because aging is happening, in this loka. It's not very fun loka. Time is short. The final one is samadhana, or samadhanam, which means cultivating a focused mind. I really like this photo. This person is holding one heart here and one pushing away. It's like you don't want, now you know what you don't want, you know what you want. Does that make sense? It's like, I don't need this. I don't need this knowledge. I don't need this information. Oh yeah, this book is a bestseller, but I don't need this. I don't need this food, even though it's a great restaurant, because it makes me aggressive and hypnotic later on. I don't need this substance in my body. I don't need to watch this television show with unnecessary violence, because I want my mind to be peacefully bathing in nature and receiving, inner inputs from my own godly self and outer inputs from the God that pervades everywhere. So we're really clear. This is the place where you develop the higher north. You're really following a noetic mind, not just a impulsive mind, a cluttered mind, an insane mind, and your mind has become your best friend at this point. And this is where you are totally primed for the 4th step, because we did 6 from the 3rd one, which is known as, it's a mouthful, it is known as mukshutvam. Mumukshutvam means the desire for liberation from your dependency upon the world, for your happiness, for your joy, and ultimately liberation from the cycle of birth and death, which has enforced you, a free spirit, to be having these experiences of loss and death and depravity and sorrow, and every day we live, we are approaching unexplained death, unexplained birth, unexplained life, unexplained death. This is crazy making. We want to be in our truth. And so here is a beautiful conversation from the Upanishad, Brihadaranyaka Upanishad. So, blessed one, if I had this whole earth filled with riches, would I become immortal by it? No. Your life would be as the life of the wealthy, but there would be no hope of immortality through riches. What use to me is something by which I cannot become immortal, which means I cannot return to my spirit nature. Blessed teacher, teach me what you know, so I too can become liberated from the cycle of birth and death. Ah, you have always been dear to me, and now you speak what is dear to me. Sit down here, and I will teach you. But, as I explain, meditate and contemplate upon it. This is a 5,000-year-old dialogue between the student Maitreyi, a woman, and her teacher, Yajnavalkya, who happened to be her husband. But she was his follower, she was his disciple. And he had 2 disciples because he had 2 wives. So as you can see, that the rishi was living it up in the bedroom. But was he enlightened? Yes. Because he was not living it up in the bedroom, as some people would like to say. Having more than one wife was the norm. Having more than one husband was the norm during Mahabharata time. So we just are animals of the social pack. We do things that happen. It's not a big deal. Life goes on. He was not identified with his bedroom alone. He was an enlightened being. And on top of that, his 2 students, one of them said, "Give me the riches." And she left. The other said, "What will I do with it? Give me the knowledge that makes me immortal." So this is a student who is now desiring for liberation from a mortal body. True awakening. While you live also, you know you're immortal, in a mortal realm. So when you come into mumukshutvam, you don't want to settle for small things. Now you are free of all spiritual hacks. You want the real deal. She didn't settle for something that will make her happy. The other one did. She went on, Maitreyi went on to become a great seer, an enlightened, awakened, immortal seer of the Vedas. So I wanted to share this dialogue with you. So these 9 steps are going to help you, and you can understand more than anything else, because this is just, and in future I'm planning to open up a training on this, more details. So stay connected with us if you want to go deeper. But the point here I'm trying to say is, understand that you must watch out for bypassing and spiritual hacks. This knowledge that I have taught you comes from my teacher to me, from his teacher to him, but ultimately it comes from the Vedas, the Upanishads, the Bhagavad Gita, and commentaries by our ancestral sage, Shankaracharya. So with this, I want to end with blessings from me and from everybody here in my team. These are all my students who are supporting this broadcast happening to you, coming live. There is no professional here. We are all just lovers of this knowledge. All my students, along with their teacher, have understood that while darkness is routine, we all begin with that. We don't have to be scared of it. We can take even one thing like spiritual discernment or detachment or shama, move on and cultivate greater and greater light. We are now open for questions from you. And Aparna, will you ask me questions?
Some of these I believe you've actually clarified in the continued teaching. However, there was a question from a student in England who asked, while these teachings help us to lead our lives in this world with a greater awareness and inner peace and divine connection, this seems to also be a preparation for the next life. By making progress within these teachings and following this path sincerely, is this a way to find a permanent blissful planet, blissful state of being, or formless blissful state? Or is it preparation to have freedom from all states of being?
It is considered a preparatory practice. It is not the final practice, because mumukshutva means you are ready for receiving the ultimate knowledge. It is expected in ancient India, as in Buddhism, as in Zen, and as in many cultures, many traditions. There always was a human apprentice, always had a human guide. You are now ready to learn. And in our tradition, in the Advaita Vedanta tradition, when you are brimming with mumukshutva, when you are like Maitreyi, not wanting to run after riches, but wanting to truly connect with an immortal, undying, boundless, amazing, omnipotent essence within you, and you are ready and you're no longer distracted. She's a wife. I'm sure she had kids too. She has a husband, but her motivations are clear. Her priority is clear, right? She is not even engaging with her husband as a husband. She's just engaged. She can only see in the husband's body a teacher, right? At that point, the understanding is that the teacher will be chanting from the Upanishads. This is how it goes. And because the real teacher is the Upanishads, and you will hear something, and you have forgotten, and you will remember. So mumukshutvam prepares you for the last barriers to fall away. But it doesn't take you completely home, it takes you to the door. Let's just say that. Or we could say you could be meditating and memory comes back. You know, for me, it didn't happen that my guru was chanting and I just awakened. Like I said, I'm a slow burner. But what happened for me was that I was a mumukshu. Like we say, the people who are intensely desiring, you know, contact with their immortal self. I was a mumukshu for many, 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 many years. So everywhere I saw, anything I saw for me was self and Atma and Brahman and all those things. And then for me it was like the rope slowly burns. But then when it was burnt, you can't put the rope back again with the ashes. Ashes are there, so you can see this is the rope. But it's only ashes when you touch it. For me it was slow. It's okay. No apologies. Next question.
That's the only questions I have right now on this.
Any other question here? Just speak up.
Can you talk about, please, Ananda in terms of the Sanskrit meaning? Because the translation is bliss, as we know in English, is problematic because of the association with bliss. So I'm wondering the original language, if that can help us really appreciate what the depth of this is.
Yeah, Nanda means bliss or happiness. Happiness. Ananda means infinite happiness. And it has a connection with Ananta. Ananta means that which is infinite. And so Satchit Ananda is also Satchit Ananta. When you feel your infinitehood expand, because we get contracted by life circumstances, people, situations, difficulties. And so when we get contracted, we feel our happiness contract too. But there is a infinite, boundless presence within you that I've been talking about in my past satsangs. So go back and revisit them if you're new. But this is known as Atma. Your true nature is Atma, again with the A. Atma. And this Atma is literally defined as that which is boundless. So when you connect with your boundless nature, you find in it boundless happiness. It's not separate. It's like you can't separate wetness from water. You can't separate bliss from, or happiness, infinite happiness from your true nature. And that is why you all, and all of you have seen that you might be feeling terrible or something is bad. And then you go, 30 seconds and you come out, do you feel better?
Yes.
Why? Because for 30 seconds you didn't go out, you went in. And who are you going to greet inside? The being who lives there. And this being is Satchitananda. There is no other word for it. It is pure being, Sat. It doesn't die. That's why it's pure being. It's being. It's not something that dies. So body is not pure being. Mind is not pure being. Ego is not pure being. You meet a being. That's why at death, so many people say, I was still there, I could see the body, right? Who's seeing the pure being? The pure being is Sat, which is purely aware. Awareness is interconnected with that being. You can't separate awareness. It doesn't need the mind to be aware. Mind needs that awareness to be aware. Mind borrows awareness from your original awareness. Mind works on an iota of awareness or intelligence from the original intelligence. That is why every scientist who has said Eureka didn't say it from anywhere but when they went inside. Yes or no? Sometimes you're a scientist. You sit down, Pragya, and you can sort out a problem. You go to bed next morning, you know it. How? When you went to sleep, probably you went closer to your pure being. In sleep also you're close, you're not there. In meditation is when you enter. In contemplation meditation you enter. But you're close, so you emerge, you have the answer. So all the intelligence awareness is inside you. All the pure existence that is deathless and immortal is in you. And pure happiness, pleasure, and all the things attached to it, creativity, peace, they are inside you. Now, this is the whole thing. The rishis told us, it's there in you. Then we got, a tried and tested path of yoga. And we have karma yoga. And these are mandatory paths for everybody. Karma yoga, Jnana yoga, the two main paths. And surrounding that is bhakti. And Raj yoga supports you further. Meditation, etc. So yoga literally means it's a pathway to that union. And then we have these 9 steps so that we don't walk in it half yawning, half chasing something else. If you want that inside deal, then you go for it. When you come back with that inside deal, you continue living in the world, but now you know who you are. Right now you guess who you are. But then you know who you are. And the world can no longer spook you. Thank you. Until January 5th, the first satsang for this next decade, join me. I am so looking forward to meeting with you and continuing this journey. If you watch this video later, you can still go ahead and post your questions, your comments, and your appreciation for this knowledge, because we are in the process of creating a 9-step training program for you to join. And I will be assisted by Aparna, who you just met. She has prepared a textbook on these 9 steps from my previous teachings for a continued period of 2 years. So she took all my teachings and crystallized that into a very easy to follow manual, and along with my teaching and her helping. So together we'll create this course. So if you're interested in the course also, you can write course. Then I'll know that's how we talk on this planet, in this century, in the age of darkness. But to inner light. Jai Ma.